So I just got off a call with a girl who is most likely going to join our program. And she's from a country where the mental health system is not only outdated, but it's almost non existent. And I found this is the case with a lot of countries out there. But what I told her is in America, it's really not much better for the particular symptom set that she's dealing with, which is depersonalization and derealization. She's been suffering for 3 years. And this poor girl has tried so many different things to overcome these symptoms to no avail. It just broke my heart. I try not to get, emotionally involved in people suffering because that can lead to something called compassion fatigue. Obviously, I do have a lot of compassion on people, but I've got to be very careful not to internalize people suffering too much because it can lead to a lot of problems. And that's another reason why I self-regulate so much and have so much self-care is because in the field that I am, I mean, most of the people that come to work with me, they tell me that I'm their last hope. They've tried literally everything that you could imagine to get rid of their anxiety and their panic attacks and even their trauma symptoms to no avail. And so anyway, with that being said, I couldn't help but internalize it a little bit just because she's just such a kind girl who just is trying to live her life. And she even said on the call, she was like, I really want to help other people in life. Like I feel this calling to just impart to other people, but she can't do that because of the symptoms. And I'm going to read you something that she wrote. She said, I've been dealing with depersonalization, realization for 3 years. And she said, I'm not even sure if it's depersonalization or dissociation. They might be the same. So she put this on her application. So dissociation is an umbrella term that just means to separate. It comes from a Latin root word that means to sever or separate. And so it's just the different ways that our brain separates us from painful experiences. And there's a lot of different ways that this can happen, but depersonalization, which is feeling separated from your body, not a full out of body experience, but you just feel detached from your body, and then derealization, where you feel detached from the material world, these happen at a very particular point in escalation of stress, which is traumatic stress. Right? Think of it like a cup, which don't judge me. This is my wife got this cup set, and every time I drink this, like I know I have to turn in my man card, but you know what? I just I've gotten to this point now that I'm 35 where like I don't need my socks to match as long as they're just relatively the same. And I don't even care about my coffee cup as long as it holds coffee. I'm good. But anyway, but imagine that this coffee cup represents your body, and this is more of a complex trauma situation where it's not just one big bad situation that causes overwhelming stress, which is like a lightning strike. Complex trauma, it's more the buildup of stress over time. Okay. And so what ends up happening is people have a bunch of painful experiences. Their brain creates what's called a sensory trigger. And these sensory triggers start to create stress in the body. Stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, tension starts to build up, emotion starts to build up, fatigue starts to build up. And there's usually, but not always, some sort of kind of tipping point where all of a sudden they hit a point of overwhelm. And once you hit a point of overwhelm in your nervous system, doesn't always imply a panic attack, by the way. I'm not talking about feeling emotionally overwhelmed. I'm talking about your nervous system being at a point of overwhelm. Your brain is like, okay, well, they're not able to fight or flee, so let's go ahead and trigger the freeze response, which is also a trauma response. And this is a mammalian defense mechanism that is designed to convey to a predator that you're dead, so it loses interest and walks away. It's something that happens in all mammals, not just humans. And there are a few symptoms that can deploy in this state that are designed to mitigate the pain of death just in case Tony the Tiger doesn't believe that you're dead and decides to eat you, right? And if you feel out of body or if everything feels fake and dreamlike, that's a heck of a lot better than being connected to your body and connected to the material world as you're being eaten. But what ends up happening is we're not in any physical danger, but yet our brain is deploying the freeze response. Our nervous system is deploying the freeze response, and people don't understand what's happening. And so they start to focus on the symptoms, and they think that the symptoms are the problem. So that's the first biggest mistake that people make. But then it gets even worse. You go to your therapist, and listen, I love therapists. Some of my favorite clients that I get are licensed mental health professionals. I've worked with a lot of psychiatrists, psychologists. especially therapists that come to work with us. I think we've got 2 in the program right now. Love therapists, love doctors. We've got 2 doctors in the program right now. We usually have a couple people in the medical field at any given time. They usually got into that field because they had a heart to help, but unfortunately, especially when it comes to trauma, they got a 20th century understanding, and so they started to deal with these symptoms, and they didn't really know how to effectively self-regulate and deal with the root. But they've usually got a big heart to help. But people go to a therapist or a doctor and they're like, yeah, I'm feeling detached from my body, or I feel like everything's fake and dreamlike. And, sometimes, and it does happen, and it's awesome when it does. The doctor's like, oh, yeah, yeah, this is depersonalization realization. Oh, yeah, it's just because you're overwhelmed by stress. Or maybe the therapist knows about it. But I'm telling you, probably, which I did actually a survey on this on my YouTube channel a couple years ago, and I wanted to say the number. I asked people, how many of you went to a licensed mental professional or a doctor and they didn't know what depersonalization realization were? And don't quote me on this. It's been a long time since I did it, but I want to say it was around like 66% of licensed mental professionals and doctors, and there were like 300 plus people, if I remember correctly, or between 200 and 300 people that voted on this. But 66%, if I remember correctly, didn't know what the symptoms were. And, this girl was telling me just about how much that it really has stressed her out, that nobody understands what she's going through. And what I told her is, one of the reasons why I'm able to help so many people is not because I do anything fancy. Like I told her, like, you need a body-based strategy. That's usually a big missing piece in a lot of people's recovery strategies, for sure. And I went over what we do with that. But the biggest missing piece is co-regulation. And a lot of people don't understand this because it's not quantifiable. It's not objective. It's not something that you can hold in your hand. It's not a technique. But it's up to 45% of healing trauma, according to a lot of major studies that have been replicated over and over again. Almost half of your healing journey from getting out of a trauma state, I would even say an anxiety state too, is being healed by another human in the form of vocal tonality, positive vocal tonality, positive facial expressions. Word selection is a big deal. I've spent the last 6 years just figuring out exactly how to say things in a way that doesn't stress people out and also that builds hope in them. Building that secure attachment relationship for people so that, they know that it's safe with me, that I'm not going to turn on them and I'm not going to make them feel guilty for their symptoms, and really just helping them contextualize the body-based strategy to their life. These things are very, very important. Co-regulation is paramount. Some people need more of it than others, but most people need a lot of co-regulation. But I told her, I was like, this is one reason why you haven't seen results, is because you haven't had somebody that can really validate your experience and really create hope in you. And because I've been through it, and that's why she said she booked the call with me, is because, she's like, oh my gosh, you're the first person that I've seen that helps with this that has actually been through it. But I want to list out some of the stuff that she's tried. She said, I've tried everything: yoga, cold showers, vagus nerve massage, EMDR, but nothing significant has changed. She said, I'm not fighting the symptoms like I used to. I'm trying to accept them, but that hasn't led to improvement either. I need help. Here in, and I won't say the country, the medical and mental health system is a mess. They don't even understand concepts like fight or flight response. I really need your help. And, in this call, let me go back to the notes that I took during the call. She basically said that which I want to be clear, I'm not trying to dissuade you from seeing a licensed mental professional. I have to give you the disclaimer that you need to go see a licensed mental professional over me. I am just a coach here. But I also will tell you, I love you too much to not tell you that, unfortunately, because there's such a gap in understanding, a lot of times with DPR specifically, people aren't getting the help that they need. And so if you are going to seek out a licensed mental professional, try to find one that is trauma informed. It's very, very important. But this particular psychiatrist basically put her on meds. And I want to be clear, I would never tell you to take meds or to not take meds. I can't give advice about medication, but I'm just telling you what happened with her. She said, quote, it made my derealization 100 times worse. And not only did it make her derealization worse, which is feeling detached from the material world, but it actually triggered depersonalization where she started to feel out of body. She wasn't even dealing with depersonalization until that medication. And so, you know, this is the cycle that people are caught in, not just in the country that she's from, but in countries all around the world. Everybody is looking for this magical method that's going to cure people, but the meta analyses have been done. And it's not, there was a meta analysis that has proven that if it looked at like CBT, EMDR, talk therapy, and DBT, a couple others, that none of those methods are superior over the other ones. There was, quote, no discernible difference in outcome based upon which method, which evidence-based practice was used. There was less than a 1% variance in outcome. And there was another study that looked at the common ingredients amongst all of those evidence-based practices that actually make them work. And you want to know what those 4 things were? It's the 4 things that I build my entire program around. And that's why this is working so well. Self-regulation, getting in tune with the body, befriending the body, releasing the buildup of tension, adrenaline, emotion from the body. Co-regulation, which studies have shown is up to 45% of healing. Somebody who makes you feel calm and safe, validates your experience, builds relationship with you. That's humans heal humans, very important. The other is exposure, so really just getting back to life instead of avoiding your triggers. And then lastly is cognitive restructuring. That's really where you go through the process of getting an accurate, up-to-date understanding of your nervous system, and then going through this process of rewiring your mind to believe the truth about your symptoms. This does 2 things. It strips away fear of the symptoms, and it strips away shame that comes into the symptoms. And so that's why what we're doing is so effective, is because it's the best parts of the best, most effective methodologies in the world. But more importantly, it's not just about method, it's about mentor. It's because I've been through this, I understand what people are going through, and I can really build a lot of hope in people and guide them through this process. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of show you what's happening with people. I have this I do have to get to a call, actually. It's starting right now. But I literally have this conversation almost every day of the week with people. And it's not just in non-US countries. You know, let's say the US is a little better and there is a trauma-informed movement that's happening, which is amazing. It's a mess. It's a freaking mess, and people are wasting their life doing a bunch of stuff that is just random, general positive things, positive, healthy habits. They're throwing cold plunges and saunas and Wim Hof breathing and exercise and gym and, you know, a little bit of CBT, or maybe they're doing a few EMDR sessions. And it's like most people don't understand that healing anxiety and trauma happens because of a very particular signal that is sent to your nervous system, and that is safety. That is how you heal these symptoms, is you do things that communicate safety, and it's those 4 things that we just talked about. So anyway, that's it. I got to go. Hope you have a good day, and we'll talk to you real soon.